Good evening, ghouls and gals, freaks and creeps, and welcome to the Terrazona podcast, where we'll be talking about everything from the paranormal to the strange, the haunted, occult, murder mysteries, true crimes, and everything in between. Everything to satisfy your spine tingling and gut wrenching needs. So, Eric, when I talk about Hawaii, what would be the first thing that comes to your mind?
Pineapples,
Yeah, Elvis, vacations.
volcanoes,
You normally wouldn't think,
luau's.
yeah, anything to do with paranormal stuff, right?
Not really.
So, digging around, I thought this would be pretty interesting to talk about. So, I'm gonna drop some stuff on you right here. Today, folks, we're going to be talking about the haunted history of the Kaimuki House. So, what makes this story even more interesting, a little bit more terrifying, is there's actual newspaper clippings, police reports to corroborate everything that I'm about to talk about. So let's just dive right on into it. So in 1940, on the island of Hawaii is a house located on 8th and Harding. I couldn't really find much information on this, but a young couple moved in. And not too long after, almost immediately, this couple started to experience a multitude of paranormal activity, from minor poltergeist to disembodied voices, disembodied footsteps, to even objects being thrown. Not just little objects, we're talking like vases, pottery, glasses, dishes, like some pretty heavy stuff. So for spirits to move that, we're talking like heavy duty poltergeist levels. Things were so bad and so frequent that neighbors could even hear the stuff from the next door and the house just adjacent across the street from it. They could hear everything going on in there.
Was there activity prior to the couple moving in?
We'll touch on that a little further after I explain everything that's going on, because now that you brought that up, there's been two stories that almost mirror exactly each other, minus a few details changing. But as hard as I looked, I could not find anything solid. No death records, no confirmed history of that part. This is the only stuff that I could confirm. So we'll touch on that towards the end. But this frequency of things being thrown and smashed was so loud that when the neighbors heard it, they thought there was like domestic violence between the young couple. So after a while, they even started to feel like the presence of just things being super ominous. They could even feel occasionally like if the wife or the husband would be doing things, touches on their shoulders, their back, their clothes being tugged. It was just, yeah, these poor people just had a hell of a time. So on one of these nights, it was so bad that the neighbors actually even called the police to go over there and, like, hey, what's going on? When the officer opened the door, the couple were in there, like, just in a panic. So the cop looked at him and was like, what's going on? He could see, like, bookcases full of dishes and chinas and vases and stuff being thrown and smashed and pulled down on its own.
And this was eyewitnessed by the police officer?
Yep.
Is there a report of the incident that we might be able to look
Yes.
up and find?
Yep, because that's where I even pulled a lot of this from. I'll be loading up pictures to this episode, so as you're listening, you can actually see the pictures of the house. They demoed the original house and then rebuilt a new duplex on top of where it sits. I couldn't find anything of any new information about people living in the house or have they experienced anything, but
This is the new property.
yeah, as far as the new property goes, I couldn't find anything.
Did they ever find out if maybe it was on like a sacred ground, like an old cemetery?
At least not that I could find. Anything like that would probably be more on like Honolulu's,
Records,
yeah, like a, what do they want to
city
call it?
records.
Yeah, city records. And if I had to pull like any kind of death certificates and stuff like that, I wouldn't be able to. So yeah, even crazier stuff.
I just pulled up right here. It says that the haunted Keisha house of Kaimuki has been the subject of haunting for decades, and the story has become an urban legend that resurfaces with each generation.
Oh damn.
So this must go back quite a ways.
Yeah, because the
If
only
they're
thing that
if they're
I could
talking
find starts in
generations.
1940. So it was definitely pretty
Was there
intense.
anything? So did the couple move in 1940?
Yes,
So no, there's no record of anything happening
up until then.
before 1940.
Yeah, at least that I could find. I've never even heard of the house until then.
Okay.
And this was everything I could find on it. So it was, yeah, definitely pretty crazy. They said not too long after the officers came the first time, they said the activity just kind of ramped up. So they're like, yeah, they decided to just
With
cut their losses.
poltergeist activity, that's normally what happens. It kind of starts out little noise here, little noise there, maybe something out of place. You might see a shadow, something slide, and then gradually
Yeah, the
progresses.
activity kicks up into something pretty nasty. But what's weird with this is normally, like you said, poltergeists start out small. This was wasting no time whatsoever. It kind of breaks the normal patterns of your typical poltergeist. Because I mean, yeah, it starts with like little bumps in the night,
Well,
voices.
like you said, disembodied voices, the footsteps, that's kind of common. But for the activity of dishes being thrown and things being knocked over, and the them feeling touched and pulled on, that's pretty high activity for right off the jump.
Yeah, because I couldn't find how long they were there, but the report said they just weren't there for very long. And some of the information I could find, some of the websites I looked at redacted some of the information, and then I found some that were completely transparent. So, yeah, some stuff I couldn't find. So, not even 2 years later, 1942, a new family moves in. It's a just a single mother, recently divorced and separated. Her three children, I believe, if I'm getting the ages right, they are 10, 18, and 20. So they lived in the house, I think they said like 6 months tops. And, things were okay for a little bit, not even too long after. Started with just voices, little, like you said, little things here and there, things moving, maybe things not being in the same place twice or so. Then,
So the second family, the activity didn't start right away. It was more of a buildup, like typical poltergeist activity is.
I think they said they lived in the house only a total of 6 months. So I'm like, damn,
That's
it's
pretty quick,
very
but-
Amityville
But
style.
not like the first family to move into it in 1940, which was immediately after they moved in.
Yeah, I think maybe with the house being empty for 2 years, it just needed almost like a dead cell. It just needed time. Because I mean, there are cases of that happening where places that are normally very super active, once they're inactive, they have to kind of
It needs
almost,
people, the energy.
yeah, to recharge itself. And then I've heard some places being so haunted it doesn't matter. Just the moment you step in, it's gonna just be there. So same thing. The family started, voices, footsteps, bumps in the night, lights on and off. So it happened in the middle of a thunderstorm. This is where things are going to take a pretty dark and dramatic turn. And the fact that it's around a storm is a key talking point towards the end. So remember that it happened during a thunderstorm. So this happened in 42. Almost the same thing. Cops get another call. And the thunderstorm is so bad that even over the phone call, they were having some trouble hearing the mother of this family, talk. All that she could get out is, she's trying to kill my children, she's trying to kill my babies, over and over, and she's just flipping out. Send somebody, get somebody here. And they're like, whoa, like, what's going on? And then again, dishes being thrown. It's so loud that even the dispatcher can hear all this stuff going on.
And this was during the thunderstorm.
Yep. It's
Okay.
Whatever's being thrown is heavy enough and being thrown hard enough that a dispatcher can hear this over. The Hawaii thunderstorms are bad because, it's all islands. So you get all that humidity, all the moisture gets into the air. So the thunder is going to be super loud and heavy out there. So the two officers who arrive on site, one of them is a police sergeant. So paperwork is very tippy top of their list. They can't falsify nothing, got to be super by the book.
Has to be accurate.
So he knocks on the door, and they could hear everything going on from even outside, that she's screaming and crying and stuff's being thrown. And they're like, hey, if you're going to go in there, have your hand at the ready just in case, it turns into like a domestic dispute. Approach with caution. So the sergeant and everything go in there. The door, they just like kind of enough to kind of shove it open. So the way it's described, they said she was sitting on the floor in the corner. So I'm assuming the house is, when you walk in, the main, like a formal living room or the main living room area is probably off to, so if you're stepping, it would be your right side. So she's pointing straight ahead of her, so that would be like more off to the left. So I'm assuming that's like your dining room, kitchen area, maybe another, like a formal living room or the living room. When the officer stepped in and looked, all three of her children were levitating. We're talking not just, a couple of feet. We're talking like to chest to about 5-6 feet.
All three at the same time.
Yes, and like I said, they're 10.
And the dishes and stuff was still being thrown around.
They did see broken dishes and other stuff around the floor. And like I said, her children are not little. They're 10, 18, and 20. So basically two fully grown adults.
Were they boys? Were they?
It was a son and 2 daughters.
Okay. And who was the oldest?
I believe it's the son is the oldest. So yeah, these are both basically fully grown adults.
Man.
Yep.
Being levitated 4 to 5 feet off the ground.
Yeah, and Hawaiians are not exactly small people.
True.
You know what I mean? Even a regular sized, Polynesian guys aren't very small.
Even just the average man, still an average adult male, is to be lifted off the ground and just be floating in midair 4 to 5 feet.
So like I said, this is where things take like that super dark twist. As she's over here screaming and yelling that, she's trying to kill my children and everything, still the officers look and they are completely just dumbfounded. They're like, there is no way in hell we're looking at what we're looking at. So the sergeant looks at, his partner, and he's like, dude, are you? He's like, yeah. He's like, are you? Yeah. So they're both like kind of.
So this was witnessed by 2 officers.
Yup, and the head guy is a police sergeant.
And so a sergeant and just a regular.
Yeah, he's been on the force for a few years, so he's definitely not a rookie.
But just a regular officer.
Yeah. So 2 definitely seasoned officers though. So I'm like, dude, no way. Just hearing that was
Could you
like,
imagine walking in and seeing 3 people floating 4 to 5 feet in midair?
yeah, dude, just the idea alone is crazy. It almost sounds made up, and then the fact that you have a sergeant of the police there. The only crappy thing that well, 1942, you didn't need body cams to, back up what you say, but imagine they had a body cam. How terrifying that must be to have to take that back to the station.
And play it. Because when they went back, everybody probably thought they were crazy.
Yeah, unless, the sergeant had a damn good reputation.
True.
So the sergeant and the officer, they're like, dude, no way, we got to get this family out of here. So they go over to try and grab the 2 children and stuff like that, because the other son, or the son rolled and kind of tried to reach out, and they said every time he would reach out, his hand would get jerked back, and they're like, they didn't know if he was convulsing or was something tugging on him. So he goes over there, and the officers try and reach and pull him. They're being slapped, punched, shoved. And this is a direct quote. One of the officers was tossed across the room.
So the officers themselves experience
Actual physical assault by an unseen force trying to rescue these children. And like I said, we're talking full grown men, and then, you to make sergeant, that's got to be at least some years. So you're looking at a guy in his 30s, 40s, just being tossed around like it ain't no big deal.
So, and this was both officers experienced the physical attacks?
Yep. Trying to get through, and for every effort that they tried to make, the kids were turned and almost, I would say, that crucifixion pose, were slapped, their hair was pulled, they were slammed against walls. For every attempt that the officers made, not only did the officer experience being assaulted and attacked again, the children were as well.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's nightmare fuel in a can. So, sometime after, the mother ran into her room and got tea leaves, water, and salt, and began to fan it towards the her children and the spirit and stuff like that. They slowly started to dissipate back down to the floor and come down, and they said this lasted for a few minutes. So after, they were then able to grab the children and get out of the house.
Was the mother into witchcraft?
I don't.
What would make her think of the tea leaves and the salt and the water?
Not a clue. I don't know if that's how we have holy water, I guess, Westerners culture. Or
I was going to ask,
tea leaves
is
would
it
be something
cultural?
I do know that a lot of people believe salt ward spirits. That's very common in most practices.
They use it for, they make the circles of protection.
Yeah, normally a lot of people will line your windowsill, the borders of your doors. They sage it, and then they also do the salt.
Inside and outside.
Yeah, so I think that could have been the Hawaiian or Polynesian culture's remedy to, I guess, the whole salt thing that we get over here. Yeah, definitely a crazy ordeal. The wife believes that the spiritual attacks came at the hand of her husband because he was upset about their divorce and things of that nature.
So she's thinking he cursed them?
Yeah, may have hexed or cursed them type thing.
Was the husband into
it didn't really say.
magic and or
Those are direct quotes
witchcraft?
from her. So as far as I know, I couldn't find anything out about the husband.
Didn't say he went to somebody and had them. Okay.
So I don't really know anything about Hawaiian or Polynesian culture or Samoan culture, but normally when you hear, hey, you're the big kahuna, that's like a good thing. Well, I guess kahuna is almost like I don't want to say like witchcraft, but I guess it's like a spiritual practice where they, you know, there's some good, some bad. So it's um, I guess you would say along the lines of like witches, warlocks type thing. At least that's what I got from reading this little snippet about kahunas, because I'm not trying to like misquote or misrepresent the culture, because like I said, I don't really know, but I believe that's kind of what it is, or I got out of it. And they called it kahuna anaoi. Aioi. I think I'm saying it right. Yeah, I'm not gonna try and butcher it in case I'm not. But yeah, it was it's pretty crazy stuff, dude. And all that happened over the span of 2 years. From 1940 to 1942 is when the new family moved in.
So, and you said that the second family only lived there 6 months.
Yeah.
Does it say if anybody has moved in after them?
Now, this is the most infamous anything to do with the Kaimuki house. Like, this is what basically solidified it with its infamousy. So, we're going to fast forward now 30 years. This house has been empty for 30 years. 1972.
In the 30 years, was there any activity?
It was basically a dead cell.
So no, the neighbors didn't hear any,
Nope.
no noises, no nothing being broken, no voices. They didn't experience seeing anything. So it was just quiet for the 30 years.
Yep, not a single peep, a sound, nothing for over 30 years. So here we are now in 1972. And what's even worse that this incident takes place on, it just kind of adds to the holy shit, scary, creepy factor. October 31st.
Halloween.
Yeah. So when people hear this, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, great Halloween prank.
Or the stories that people tell.
Yeah. But here's the other scary part. Again, 2 more officers, 2 more reports to go over with what happened.
So 2 separate reports. Each one had their own.
Yep. Each officer has to give their own reports to it's for more legalities, but that's the crazy thing. You have, again, another 2 officers had to do 2 separate reports on the exact same thing 30 years later.
Were the reports similar? Did they differ in any way?
A few things, because one officer is going to arrive a little later, but we'll get to that. So, October 31st on 1972, police is going to get sent out again to the Kaimuki house. It's 3 young ladies around college age, so we're saying maybe 20, maybe 24, 25-ish. Same thing, they've heard people talking, things rustling around. They thought somebody broke into their house, and they could still hear the people talking. They're like, whoa, hold on. So they did their own little kind of generic look around just to make sure that nobody was in the house. Still hearing bumps and people talking, all kinds of craziness still.
But couldn't find anybody.
Nope. So the young ladies, called the police and had officers show up. So they're waiting in the living room. One of them's got a bat, and they're all just like stuck in the living room, huddled around, a little 3-person sofa. I believe it was the young lady who made the call. She said from through the couch basically to where her arm would be, she felt a cold, icy hand. And it was firm enough where she could feel finger indentions, callus, the spacing of his finger joints.
And this was through the couch.
Yes, like through the couch and almost like around her shoulder. So I'm assuming she's completely,
Back against it.
Yeah. So it was on her upper arm. So I don't bicep, shoulder blade area. That's why I hate kind of where they describe it instead of just give you a concrete answer. But yeah,
More of a
you got to play a guessing game with that one. But they said as soon as she felt that, they're like, no way. She went into the vehicle that they had parked out front. All three of the young ladies waited until officers were there.
outside in the car.
Yep, they refused to go back inside until he came and looked around. So the officer who arrives goes in there, looks through the house, and she's like, I can't find anything. But he even said, he's like, I can hear people and like things rustling around. He's like, but there's nobody to do it. And I'm the only one in here, flashlight, gun, armed. And if you're still going to be making noises and stuff like that, especially because, when officers enter rooms, they have to announce themselves. I'm a police officer, I'm
Anybody
armed.
here?
Yeah. And they even state that their weapon is drawn or they're armed. So nobody answered, nothing. But he could still hear voices, footsteps, like blankets and stuff wrestling around. He's like, yeah, no, like this is a no-go. And he
This
booked
was
it out of
one
there.
of the officers? Or
Yes,
both?
there was only one officer
That
who
went.
arrived first.
Okay.
The second officer will come a tad later. So the three young ladies, he's talking to them and he's like, but I hear what you guys are hearing too. So is there any place you guys can go, a hotel? One of the young ladies is like, well, my mom, or no, it's her grandmother, is about a 20-minute drive, maybe 30 tops. Could you just follow us there, make sure everything is good? Because we don't feel safe to even be alone. Can you just escort us? It's like, okay, yeah, not a big deal. I would rather make sure you guys make it there safely. So they're driving, they're coming around the highway areas. I don't exactly know how they look in Hawaii, but so they're driving down the highway and the car starts swaying kind of erratically. So they pull off to like a little dirt patchy kind of area, and the officer's like, what is that?
And this is just the first officer that arrived.
Yes. So the car is like shaking in the inside. He's like, whoa, what the hell? So he hops out, goes over there, and then he can hear them screaming, and like the car continues to shake. So he opens the door and he says he sees the young lady who made the call gasping for air, reaching for her neck. And what's weird is she's reaching for the outside of her neck. So almost like that choking position, like you would try and grab a wrist, is where she's grabbing. But she's not grabbing anything. She's just trying to yank and pull, but ain't nothing happening. So he thought she was freaking out, and then he could see her neck start to like compress.
So like indentions of like fingers.
Yeah.
Or two hands.
So the officer is flipping out at this point. He stood kind of like, what'll I do? What'll I do? Because he wasn't prepared for that. So after, a couple seconds of like the shock initially wore in, he's like, okay, do something. He reached in there, tried to like strip the hand from her neck and pull her own hand away from her neck so she could try and get, breath. He said he felt a hand grab his forearm, and it was so heavy, so strong enough that, like these other folks said, they can feel the callus. He could feel their weight, the width, and it was an overly large hand, a hand that was way too big to be like a 20-something-year-old female's hand. It twisted his forearm and shoved him out of the car.
So he felt physically attacked as well.
And officers are trained, if you grab their wrist, to move and fling around. He said it was so strong it literally snapped him almost like chicken wing kind of back and just shoved him from that motion completely
Was she
out of
still
the car.
being choked?
Yep. So he radios another officer to get there, and he's trying to wrestle her out of the vehicle and help her. So after a couple of minutes, she's able to take a breath. They all fall out of the car, and she's like, I can't go back in there. He's like, yes, go and sit in my vehicle. We're going to wait for the other officer to arrive. So officer shows up, and the other officer is sitting on the hood of his car. He said when the young lady approached, this is the weird part. The young lady who was being choked was the first to get into the car. All the lights, everything, as soon as she stepped in, died.
So all the
entire
electrical power was gone.
It killed the engine. It killed the lights to his squad car. Everything. As soon as she got in, it killed
Just
it.
her, or
Yeah, she was the first to get in, and as soon as she got in,
it happened.
everything died. From the engine, radio, everything. And officers' radios don't shut off. They run on their own batteries and their own frequency because, if there's any kind of a national disaster or a roadside, they have to have that. Even his radio was dead.
What about his the radio that he carried?
His side radio, they said that was still working. It was just the vehicles.
Okay. That's
So
crazy.
he just stood out, had them roll the windows down so they could still get air, and he's just sitting outside on the trunk of his car just like, what the hell just happened? So when the other officer arrived, he's talking to him, and he's like, from the commotion, he heard it over the radio. He was expecting like a fight, and he's like, no, and unless you want to fight a ghost. He's like, wait, what? He's like, yes, dude, like this is what happened. And the other officer was like you're, come on, dude, it's Halloween. Like he's like, no, dude, like look at my face. And he's like, he said he could see it in the officer's face that this is clearly no joke, no laughing matter. He said the fear was so heavy in his eyes that even the other officer, who hasn't even experienced anything yet, was like, damn, like this is scary because my man right here looks absolutely just terrified. So the officers, are talking to these young ladies, and they're like, we refuse to get back in our car. Like, we're not even going in there. We're not even going to try. Can we just ride with you guys? We'll get our car in the morning. So the officers are trying to figure out what to do. And then the young ladies are like, you know what? We're already almost there. We'll just take the car. We'll make it. So the two officers are trying to get the previous officer's car to start. Nothing going on. So the one who was being choked, gets out, goes and sits in her vehicle. As soon as the other officer went for it, car kicks over.
And this is after she.
Yup,
Okay,
immediately after she left and sat in their vehicle, his vehicle kicked back over.
What about her vehicle? Did the same thing happen, or
Hers ran, no issue whatsoever. So that's the crazy part of it all. Like, what is it about this one particular girl that, like, it's just odd. Even reading the story, I'm like, what's the significance of this chick? Like, it just makes no sense. Does she have a tie to the house? Is the spirit just, specifically targeting her, and why? Like, there's literally almost nothing to go on. But for spirits to do stuff like that, it has to have some kind of a reason. Even when they do poltergeist, it's to break you down, build fear, whatever, so it can manifest or move objects. This thing can clearly move objects. It can assault people and do things like that. So what is this thing?
could it be demonic?
I couldn't tell you,
Because
dude. It sounds like it. That's more demonic levels of activity. So it's I don't know, man. So a lot of people have said there's kind of going back to the thing about Kahuna. They said it could have been a curse on the land at one point, but with no
Oh,
history, there's nothing to go on. Everything is clearly speculation about what's happened.
just found some information that a lot of the experiences that they're experiencing is the Kahuna's curse.
Hmm. Yeah, see, I've never heard of that.
Neither did I didn't know that it was a curse as well.
Everything I dug on this place was just everything I could just find on the people who live there in the house. So it's, like I said, it's not really a whole lot to go on, but what you have,
So maybe due to the fact that if a lot of the things that are happening is falls in the lines of this Kahuna's curse, maybe people were practicing the rituals or whatever would be to cause the curse on this property. And they might have opened a doorway to let something come through,
yeah,
which is
Hawaiians are very
which is
spiritual, at least traditional Hawaiians.
which are is allowing all these things to happen.
Yep, and we ain't even done yet with this whole ordeal, just trying to get to this lady's grandma's house. So they finally get everybody situated. They decided to take their car and they're going to go. But this time, both officers are following, one in front and one in back. They head out. I think the report said they only made it about 25 feet or 25 yards. Same thing. They see one of the doors fling open from the back, and the woman who was being choked be literally yanked out of the car.
Completely yanked out of the
Yeah,
car. So
like yanked
she's
out and
not-
hit the dirt. She got a little bit of road rash from how hard and how fast she got yanked out.
and it's just happening to this one particular
Yep.
female in this group.
So same thing. Both officers, as soon as she hit the ground, ran over there to try and pull the hands away from her neck. Nothing's happening. So in the middle of this, the officer's like, hold on. I just make sure she stays okay until I can come back. So where they pulled off to when she got yanked out, there's a cafe. It's called the Oasis Cafe. It's no longer there anymore. It was demo because this is back in 72. He comes back with salt and water.
So there has to be something about the salt in the water that they believe.
Yep. Almost like a holy water ritual, bro. Just flinging it. And he said within a couple of minutes, she was able to start pulling her neck free. And she took a breath. You could see her hand like almost went from holding something to just completely through it. So the spirit was gone after a couple of minutes from
Of
this
the
officer's
Throwing
intervention.
the water and the salt.
So, yep. And then in the reports, like, they even stated what happened, and they were like, okay, this force was so strong that sometimes the two of us couldn't even pry it away.
And this was both officers. Did they say how big these officers were? Were they?
Sadly, there's no description of the officers.
Do they give names of any of these people?
Yes, sadly, I with just all the information I was trying to take in, I did forget to grab their names, but their names are in the actual police report. You can find that on Google, or just look up the Kaimuki House, and you will find something.
Okay, and this will give you the names of the individuals that this was happening to. Is this all the individuals from the first people moving in 1940? The ones
Sadly,
in
there's no
42?
names on them,
But
and
just
nobody
for-
knows what happened to them either after they left the house.
So it's just from
42 and onwards, I believe. So, yeah, it was definitely not my ideal vacation. When I hear Hawaii, this ain't what I would think of.
Just how crazy it must have been to see these reports that these officers were putting in, and like if anything, like if they had to see, they made them see like a psychiatrist to make sure that there was nothing wrong.
I can almost guarantee you that they had to undergo some kind of a psych eval because nobody would believe this. I'm reading it and don't even really want to believe it, but it's because this is what every paranormal investigator, anyone who is into the paranormal, this is what you want. And it's so rare to actually happen.
And especially this much.
Yeah.
And being documented multiple times by multiple people.
Yep. So not only do you have officers, you have eyewitness accounts of everything that happened to the people there, giving their testimony,
written reports,
and you can find the clipping in the Honolulu Star Press, I believe is what it was.
Of this particular incident.
Yes, you can actually find the newspaper clipping of the very first incident in 42.
Okay. But not this one that happened in, what was that, 73?
72.
72?
Yeah, it's so weird that a house goes dormant for 30 years and then this happens in little to no time at all.
Well, it also is what's crazy is that it happens away from the house.
Yeah,
it's
normally
not
once you leave,
it's not necessarily just focused while somebody is in the house.
My first assumption, it was some kind of an attachment. That was the very first thing I thought of. But
well,
if you just
why
move
wouldn't
in there,
wouldn't it have been attached to the first two families that moved in?
Yeah,
it just seemed to be attached to this female.
One particular girl, and like that's what makes no sense too. If for 30 years it's been empty, how would it develop any kind of an attachment?
I'm feeling it's more demonic.
Yeah, or
spirits.
It has something to do with the Kahuna curse. So, how you asked me earlier, was there any history on the house prior? There's two stories that say this could kind of lead into the origin of this whole just complete crazy thing. So, there's a husband and a wife, and they had two children. The wife was going to divorce her husband. Their relationship was just strained. They don't say if it's because of the house or anything, just they started to have an estranged relationship. So finally, she's like, I'm done. We're done. He snaps. Murders his wife and his son. Here's the kicker. His daughter, body was never found. That's one of the stories, that the body of his daughter was never found.
The father that
murdered his family. I believe he took his own life in the house, but the wife and his son, he buried them in the backyard. That's the story that's kind of out there. Second
maybe
story.
This is it seems to be like a male spirit. Maybe this is who it is. Him, the anger that he was feeling, he's just continuing to feel. Because it sounds like he attacks this females and children.
Yeah, it's just nutty, dude. Like I can't even, like, even reading this, like I was racking my brain trying to find answers, because I'm one of those guys who's always on a mission for answers. So second story is, it almost mirrors the first, except only their relationship was still strained. His wife was having an affair with another woman, and he caught them in bed, found out, and that was just his breaking point. He's like, now, great, my wife is leaving me for a woman. Now he's like less of a man, freaked out, killed his whole family type thing. and then took his own life again in the house.
So did they have children? So
A son and a daughter.
So same thing.
Just only difference is the wife was having an affair with another woman, and he caught her with her
basically pushed them to a breaking point, and it caused them.
lover. Killed his lover, or killed the wife, her lover, and his children, and then took his own life. But
And this was prior to
1940.
So maybe this is the whole cause of what's going on inside this house. Is it the original house? The house that the couple in 40 and 42?
experienced?
It's the same house.
Yep. Even the whole incident with the 3 young ladies, it was still the original house.
You said that it was demoed at some point.
Yes, I couldn't find the original demolition date, but it has been remodeled with a brand new dual level, like little duplex thing over where the original house stands. And as far as I know, I can't find any reports of any new activity around the house.
So maybe it was just connected to the house.
Another big theory is they believe it was a thing called Akasha. And Akasha is, thank God I'm into anime and Japanese stuff. Akasha is a fire spirit, and it literally means like fire carp is the literal translation. And sometimes they look like cats because they're derivative from, I forgot how to say this word in Japanese, but they're like cat spirits. They ferry you off, to damnation. They're kind of like, they spirit you away and stuff like that. What's weird, they feed on human corpses, which would kind of tie into that weird story about why the daughter's body went missing, if that is true.
You're saying. Okay, so
And
they're saying that
they're most active during a thunderstorm is when they unveil their true forms.
and this is the Akasha.
Yep. And what happened in 42? The thunderstorm. That's when the children were levitating. So there's a lot to unpackage in this episode. There's
the haunting itself. There's the possibility of the Kahuna's curse. We now have the Akasha. That's a lot of different reasons for all this paranormal activity.
Yep. And if there is any truth to the whole family murder aspect of everything, I can't find out anything.
Was it to deal with the house, or was it just the situation?
Yes, exactly.
So that's something you would have to...
Because if it was that Kahuna's curse, could that have pushed the couple into
Well, if you
whatever
notice,
was
you
going
said
on?
both stories, the couples were having problems. So there's a link between the two of them.
Yeah, and I wonder if there was something already there that just made bad situations even worse. And then finally, once that happened, it just had everything it needed.
Well, that's why I feel that it was more demonic.
Yeah,
It fed off the negative energy of the situation at hand and continued to amp it up.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the most interesting cases that I have ever heard of. Even reading it, I'm just like, there's so much to unpackage, and I want answers.
It's the fact that there's so much evidence to corroborate all the stories that people are telling about the house.
Yep. So it's definitely one of the most exciting things I've ever read. I can say that because the only other cases like this you'll hear about are like I forgot what her name is, but the one that the Emily Rose case was based off of.
The Exorcist.
Yep, the true story to The Exorcist,
Um,
the entity case.
um, the supposed evidence for the stories that are the base for The Conjuring.
So, yep. Next time you want a vacation in Hawaii, folks, you can actually stop by and see the new house. I don't believe they do ghost tours, but I mean, you can walk right up to the street and just look at the house.
It's definitely be something worth checking out.
Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii just to
Go to Hawaii.
Yeah, plus I like the culture. So after hearing this, I'm like, this is absolutely incredible, and I have to see this house. This is almost like an Amityville style type story and haunting. It's just a little less dramatic. I mean, Robert DeFeo.
Killed his whole family. But remember the two stories that supposed to happen of the two murders in the home. So,
And it's weird because kind of going back to the whole Kasha thunderstorm thing, Robert DeFeo too.
during a thunderstorm.
And they say that's why they didn't hear the gunshots.
So maybe there is a
Common link somewhere between this whole Akasha thing. So, food for thought, folks. And with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's episode. With me, as always, is my co-host, Derek. And I'm Sebastian. And we're signing out. Good fright and good night, folks.